new things. The STTP has total 18 sessions starting after the inaugural function, and different parts will be discussed, like millimeter wave for 5G communication, role of AI in 5G, electromagnetic simulation of 5G application with CST, MWS, and more on. And their countermeasures will be discussed in detail in the different sessions. The theory session have been completed with timely lab session based on real-time application to ensure proper knowledge, delivery, and implementation of the concept of antenna design. I'm sure that all the participants will have enhanced their knowledge after this STTP. Now, I would like to invite Professor Mahesh Bundele sir for his wisdom words. Sir, over to you.
Yeah, good morning, one and all. Honorable Chief Guest, Professor R.P. Yadav, MNIT Jaipur. Guest of Honor, Dr. Meghendra Sharma, Vigyan Bharati, Jaipur. Architect Rahul Singhi, Director Purnima Group. Coordinators of this particular STTP, Dr. Garima Mathur and Dr. Payal Bansal. Other guests and dear participants. At the outset, I welcome you all for the inaugural session of this 1 week STTP. Rather, I would say it will be a 3 weeks STTP extended editions. So, this 1 week STTP on artificial intelligence and 5G communication technology, sponsored by AICT under AQIS scheme. It's a really great topic. Artificial intelligence has become a boom for everybody. 5G communication technology we are talking about, experimentation is going on everywhere, and parallelly there is 6G emerged. So 5G and 6G are parallelly being worked out along with artificial intelligence. Both the areas are very important. Although we know AI is known by everybody, including a small kid to very old people or senior person, but working on it or bringing capability to work on it, bring out some solution to some problem using these technologies is very important. So in that perspective, AICT, MHRD and other government agencies, they are giving a lot of funds to the institutions. They are giving funds to develop the understanding and the knowledge of, upgrade the knowledge of faculty members across the country. So I would say that the topic has been rightly selected by the organizers and it has been rightly approved by AICT too. These days, being it online mode of conduction of programs, AICT has converted 1 week STTP to 3 or 4 weeks of STTPs in extended editions. That way, I called it a 3 week. So this is the first week we are starting, and there will be a second week launched and a third week launched later on. So that means there will be extensive opportunity for extensive learning, extensive in-depth understanding and deliberations by the experts. The experts have been invited from all reputed institutions, including NITs and IITs, and I hope that all these experts will be delivering their best along with the case studies and the hands-on practice to the participants, so that they all carry on further to their institution, their colleagues and their students for doing research in this particular area. I am thankful to the Honorable Chief Guest, Professor R.P. Yadav, for accepting the invitation and gracing this occasion. I am also thankful to the other guest, Dr. Meghendra Sharma, for having accepted the invitation and gracing this occasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Sir, for your valuable words. Architect Architect Rahul Singhi sir is energetic, young and dynamic director of Purnima Group. His dedication towards growth of next generation is always inspiring to all of Purnima family. Now, I would like to request Rahul Singhi sir to share your views about this STTP. Rahul sir?
Yes, ma'am. Respected Yadav sir, Bundele sir, Garima ma'am, and all the learned members of this meeting. So it's my privilege to welcome you all at Purnima Group. And we seldom get this privilege because mostly we are into the administration, not in the academics. So uh, I mean, it's very privileged of me to be part of this program. Uh, so I won't take much of the time, but I would like to say that Purnima Group has emerged out to be one of the biggest group of professional education in the state of Rajasthan in terms of AICT seats that we have. And in terms of the STTPs and the uh, various webinars and trainings funding that we get from AICT, RTU, we have one of the most fundings in terms of the amount of money that we receive from various agencies. So I mean, it is. I'm sure that all of you will be benefited out of these trainings. That as our faculty members, coordinators have put in a lot of hard work and efforts in organizing these trainings. So for you, I would like to say that uh, even it's a great privilege for everyone that the trainings are happening online. It saves a lot of time for everyone. So you should utilize this. You should wholeheartedly be part of the trainings and interact with the speakers and take the maximum learning that you can take from the trainings. So I again thank you all and best wishes to the organizer for organizing this wonderful training. And I'm hopeful that all of you will have lot of takeaways to take after the end of the training. Over to you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for enlightening us. It is a great pleasure to introduce our guest of honor, Dr. Magendra Sharma, Secretary, Vigyan Bharati, Rajasthan, ex-research officer, remote sensing, SRSAC, DST, Rajasthan State Coordinator, Science Popularization Activity, Vigyan Prasar Sanstha, New Delhi, Director, Vibhavani Rajasthan Chapter Secretary, Vigyan Bharati Rajasthan, and Rajasthan Head, International Institute of Waste Management. I request to Dr. Magen Sharma sir to share his views. Sir?
Thank you, ma'am. I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
It's
Dr.
breaking.
Sharma?
Voice is breaking.
Now I'm audible.
Yeah.
Actually, मैं इस साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी की बात कर रहा हूँ कि इनोवेशन पॉलिसी को लेकर के भी हमारा एक कैंपेन शुरू हुआ है गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया का, जिसमें आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस को लेकर के सेल्फ रेलिएंट भारत के साथ जोड़ करके हम किस तरह से इसको आगे ले जा सकते हैं। AICT से जो ये प्रोग्राम शुरू हुआ है, इसमें मैं चाहूँगा दर्शक सबको कि इसमें खासकर हमारा जो STIP है, साइंस टेक्नोलॉजी इनोवेशन पॉलिसी है, इसकी कुछ गाइडलाइंस है जिसको मैं शेयर करना चाहूँगा। इसको लेकर के भी इस प्रोग्राम को थोड़ा सा एक्सप्लेन करें। इसमें विज्ञान भारती एक नोडल एजेंसी के रूप में काम कर रही है, जो कि गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया की डिफेंस DBT हो या बायरेट हो या निस्टार हो, इन सभी को ब्रिजिंग पर काम कर रही है, जो कि कॉलेजों में हम एक इस तरह सेंसिटाइज कर रहे हैं कि आने वाले टाइम में एक आइडिया कॉम्पिटिशन के रूप में जनरेट हो। हम जानते हैं कि 5G टेक्नोलॉजी अभी अपकमिंग है, 6G 7G और भी जनरेशन आ रही है, लेकिन सवाल इसका है कि हमारे यहाँ पर बच्चे हैंडफोन कितना कर पाते हैं, उनकी R&D कितनी हो पाती है, इस R&D का सोसाइटी में क्या उपयोग हो पाता है, ये बहुत कुछ देखने का विषय है। पूर्णिमा ग्रुप से काफ़ी अच्छा वर्क कर रहा है इस क्षेत्र में R&D में, तो हम उम्मीद रखते हैं कि डायनामिक आप रखते हैं यहाँ पर ICT, तो विज्ञान भारती आपको इस क्षेत्र में एसिस्ट करने के लिए हम गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया के साथ में आपको खासकर आइडिया कॉम्पिटिशन को लेकर के जोड़ना चाहेंगे, क्योंकि हमारे रिसेंट एमएनआईटी के साथ में एमओयू हुआ है और इसके साथ में आईआईटी और सीएसआईआर के साथ में हुआ है। तो हम चाहते हैं कि इस आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस और 5G कम्युनिकेशन टेक्नोलॉजी जो कि आपका 5G शेड्यूल है, इसके साथ में आगे जब भी आइडिया कंपटीशन की बात आती है तो विज्ञान भारती आपके साथ एसोसिएट होना चाहता है। इसी के साथ आपको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद जो हमें बुलाया इसमें, और थैंक यू। और सक्सेस के लिए आगे आपका ये प्रोग्राम अच्छा चले, इसके लिए बहुत बहुत खुशी। ऑल द बेस्ट, थैंक यू।
Thank you, sir, for your valuable words. A pioneer of mobile network security and smart antenna, holding huge expertise in the domain of mobile computing, security mechanism, and an ardent researcher. I feel it a privilege to have Dr. R.P. Yadav, sir, MNIT Jaipur, as a chief guest of today's function. Sir, kindly encourage us with your words.
Thank you, Guru Garima.
Thank you.
Yeah, good morning to everyone. Dr. Mahesh Bundele, Director of Purnima Institutes, Mr. Rahul Singhi, Dr. Megendra Sharma, Guest of Honor, and Program Coordinator Dr. Garima Mathur, participants, and invited guests. It's again an honor for me to be part of this particular course, that's Artificial Intelligence and 5G Communication Technology. I think, as spoken by my earlier speakers, technology is driving, you can say, most of the, you can say, changes in our social, economic, or every sphere of life. Now, mobile communication in particularly, you can say, and particularly we are talking about now 5G mobile communication technology, which is likely to obviously transform our lives. In fact, more rather, of course, it's already doing, but with coming of 5G communication technology, I think this transformation is going to be very, very, you can say, revolutionary, because the connectivity will getting expanded, and there will be significant improvement in the multimedia services. You can say already spoken by these speakers about artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT based applications, augmented and virtual reality. You speak anything, and I think perhaps total paradigm shift is likely to take place. And it's very the government is also, and our government at center and states also, they are promoting, you can say, because this technology is likely to drive, you can say, all our business entrepreneurships, all our, you can say, future, maybe, particular some big companies, as is happening around the world. So this, let me compliment, you can say, the organizers of this particular course program to pick up such a, relevant and very, very, you can say, useful, topic for, you can say, training. Now, how this particular technology is likely to, you can say, one example, like, we are already seeing that in this corona pandemic, this is the communication technology which has, saved this world, you can say. Everybody is not, you can say, having, or at least the pain is not that much, because in all lectures, all classes, or whatever, you can say, exams or other things, everything is now, people are connected through communication. So at least they are sharing their expertise. They are, you can say, whether it's a businessman or whether it's, you can say, bank sector or, any financial other, you can say, sectors, communication technology is, really, you can say, now a lifeline for humanity. So how our country and the society can benefit from, this technology? We have already seen a lot of, you can say, changes since, this last, 40, 50 years. But new opportunities are likely to happen, and how we grab those opportunities. And for that purpose, I think this all, faculty, you can say, in the engineering colleges or other, universities, we have to work out that this post, corona pandemic, this post, you can say, 5G communication technology, which is likely to, you can say, be, you can say, commissioned by fully by 2030. and how do we take advantage? What kind of business, we should think about so that we as a nation and society can progress. Now, the speeds they are talking about is enormous. You can say 20 gigabits per second, that sort of. So now, right now, we already have, 4G also. You can say we are very happy with most of, you can see, with 4G. But 5G, they are talking about, you can say 20G, I mean, at least for enhanced mobile broadband services. And many, you can say, technology opportunity, you can say the hardware also, like millimeter wave, propagations. I'll be talking in my, you can say, this particular, lecture also. So it's a good, and the topics that has been prepared or you can say incorporated by the coordinators in this particular, I think, faculty development program are going to be very, very, I think, useful. I'm hopeful, and let me wish a grand success to this particular program. Thank you for inviting me and giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for encouraging us with your words. Now it's time to conclude this inaugural session. So I would like to invite Dr. Payal Bansal, Associate Professor, EC Department, for vote of thanks. Ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Now, it's time to conclude this inaugural session. I took this opportunity to propose vote of thanks. It's my privilege to have asked to propose vote of thanks on this occasion of online learning 1 week short-term training program entitled on Artificial Intelligence and 5G Communication Technology. I, Dr. Payal Bansal, on the behalf of Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering and the entire fraternity of Purnima College of Engineering, first of all, extend my humble gratitude to Almighty God for making today's occasion. On my own behalf, I extend a very hearty thanks to our chief guest, Professor R.P. Yadav sir, MNIT Jaipur, our guest of honor, Dr. Nagendra Sharma, Secretary, Vigyan Bharati, Rajasthan, who spared the time from their busiest schedule to enlighten us on the advances taking place in research and innovations on emerging technologies. Thank you so much, sir. I also would like to thank all registered participants who have given an overwhelming response about this STTP. I also express my sincere thanks to Director Purnima Foundation, Architect Rahul Singhi sir. His able guidance has always encouraged us. I thank him for his kindness, his interest in providing us this online platform to interact with participants from all over the India. I thank our well-wisher, Director Dr. Mahesh Ambundele sir, for his kind support, vision, and commitment. I thank Vice Principal Mr. Pankaj Dimla sir for the support for this event. My heartfelt thanks to administrative staff, especially our Registrar, Mr. Devendra Somvanshi, Mr. Shivraj, and Mr. Ritesh for making everything available to us. I cannot thank everyone enough for their involvement and their willingness to take on the completion of the task. Once again, I want to state that we are almost grateful to you all. We thank you for being with us and supporting us throughout. It has been a great pleasure. I wish you good learning for coming 6 days of this short-term training program. Thank you. Thank you very much. Handing over to you, Garima ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we start first session, and it is great privilege to us that Professor R.P. Yadav sir with us, and session topic is 5G communication technology. Payal ma'am.
Yeah. Dear participants, very good morning to all of you. Today is the first day of this 1 week short-term training program, and I wish you good luck and great learning for upcoming 6 days under the guidance of great academicians. So we have Professor R.P. Yadav sir as eminent speaker for the first session. I welcome you, sir. Dr. R.P. Yadav has done his PhD work under the project Response of ISRO Bangalore in Communication Engineering. He has supervised more than 9 PhDs and 30 MTechs. He have completed 2 sponsored projects of MHRD. He has worked as the head of the Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, MNIT Jaipur. He has served many reputative posts in the MNIT Jaipur, like as Sports Library Dean Student Affair at MNIT Jaipur. He has currently working as Chief Vigilance Officer of the institute since 2015. He has a part of various committees of MNIT, various universities, state government, and national, like chairman, NWRC, AICT, Chandigarh, etc., formed to address various academic and collaborative research and the policies of technical education. His area of research are error control codes and MIMO, OFDM, RFN, antenna system, mobile and wireless communication system, optical switching, and mobile ad hoc and sensor networks, devices characterization, MEMS, MEMS, cognitive radio networks, etc. It's a great privilege and honor to have as a speaker you, sir, with us for this session. So over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Payal. Thank you for your gracious introduction. Let me start So, friends, I mean, my fellow faculty members and other participants from industry or other invited guests, it's a very fascinating topic. In fact, nowadays, everybody wants to know about at least what is likely to happen, in future communication technology, how this communication technology is to, you can say, shape the, you can say, the future in terms of, you can say, our, industrial activities, or you can say financial or social, everything I think is going to get transformed. So I think all of you know that this release of new generation, wireless technology, almost every decade, you can see that up to this now, it started in 1970s, as you can see, first generation systems, and now we are reaching to, you can see, the 5G, and people are already talking about 6G systems, and maybe more, you can say, version of it. So this particular 5G communication technology, of course, it has been only as a pilot project implemented in some cities, and all of you know about it, that China, you can say, or this is Scandinavian countries, you can say Ericsson, or Nokia, or many other companies, they are taking, you can say, lead in the Samsung, Motorola, I mean, this particular Qualcomm. These are taking, you can see, the leading, initiative in giving shape to this 5G communication technology. There are many issues which are still to be resolved, but some pilot projects have already been commissioned, and their response, I think, is, has been very, very fascinating. All the same, I mean, there are many still challenges. In fact, rather, there are a lot many challenges, and that's in a way good also for at least all of you youngsters. You can really fill up those, challenges, at least with your solutions. I mean, the solutions, you can say, in terms of whether it is, you can say, EMBB or machine, massive machine to machine communication, or, I mean, low latency communication, ultra reliable. Different challenges are there, and particularly millimeter wave. So I'll start my present, you can say, the topic with, you can say, these are the contents. First, I'll talk about a little bit about evolution of, 1G to 4G and whatever the issues there. And then I'll talk about 5G in detail, that millimeter wave, massive MIMO, multi-beam antennas, and ultra densification. I mean, these are the 4, you can say, key enabling technology for 5G. And I'll a little bit talk about, you can say, a little bit of smart, you can say, antenna systems or beam formation also, which is also a very core, you can say, technology part of 5G communication. So if we start with mobile communication, a wireless form of communication in which voice and data information is emitted, transmitted, and received via microwaves, or you can say wireless, I mean, frequencies. This type of communication allows individual to convey, I think these are all elementary form. Now, if you look at, this evolution of communication system, this particular picture depicts the, a real, you can say, for the, I mean, many of the participants, that who had not at least you can say use 1G or I mean maybe 2G. Maybe many of you have started with you can say 3G, 4G systems. So 1G system had at least you can say analog based systems, and a lot of obviously in the very initial you can say systems, they had a lot of you can say initiatives, and the features of this particular 1G technology was you can say uh, it has a data rate. Of course, nobody talked about data rate at that particular, so near about you can say 2.4 kbps. Then this was based on advanced mobile phone systems. I mean, it was you can say started in US around mid 70s. You can say frequency division multiple access was used, and frequency band was again at 800 megahertz, bandwidth 30 kilohertz. Switching technology was circuit switching, and the application was predominantly voice. What were the issues in this particular drawbacks? At least poor voice quality was there, then poor battery life also, because battery, of course, I think all of
Your
you know.
phone is
Is it audible? Hello?
yes,
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
yes, sir.
Poor battery life. In fact, battery is still an area where many of youngsters, at least who are, want to do some, or maybe you can say start some their own, you can say company. Battery is still a, not very, you can say fully solved problem in a sense, because most of the devices are now getting wireless, and still we have, you can say, limited duration of, battery backups there. Okay. And this is again still a problem, you can say, corresponding to this, you can say, battery life. Then the large phone size were there. Obviously, they were the early days, you can say, in case of this particular integrated electronics also. So this phone size were obviously little bit, you can say, big in size and weight also. No security. Security was nobody, and limited capacity they had, and poor handoff reliability also. All of those who are familiar, you can see, with this, mobile communication, this handoff is a very important part of, you can say, this particular technology. Then came 2G technology. 2G second generation, I think, was very, very. It really transformed, you can say, the mobile communication, and it became a worldwide system. In fact, and this got, you can say, started in late 90s, and data rate, of course, was still not a consideration, but this global system for mobile communication, GSM, known as, you can say, that provided, you can say, a very good voice quality, and using, of course, time division multiple access, code division multiple access, IT. I mean, these are the systems. 95 IT 95 or CDMA 2000 systems, of course, along with GSM, but along with, you can say, this TDM technology, and along with CDMA, this GSM, you can say, this global, this particular 2G generation, that really, you can say, connected people across the world. And in a sense, what we are calling today as a globalized, world, the partly it is because of this particular GSM, you can say, communication, because all across the world you are connected now, anywhere, anytime, you can say, all 24 hours. The frequency band, 850 to 900, 1800, 1900 megahertz, bandwidth around 200 kilohertz. All of you know that obviously when this particular signals travel in a wireless media, you have to ensure the reliability, and for that purpose, I mean, they use what is GMSK, Gaussian minimum shifting, and sort of, you can say, frequency modulation and distal frequency modulation, and that obviously had a lot of, you can say, the frequency consumption was a little bit higher on the higher side. Switching technology, again, circuit switching, and application voice and data. I think this system was fairly stable, at least for a long time, and still it is being used, in fact. But with the coming of, you can say, people started feeling, you can say, this particular data, communication, and this gave rise to people. People started thinking that we have to go to, some data speed increase, and that's how, you can say, initially SMS came, short mail services. And the reason was because, I mean, this particular limited, you can say, data transmission capability was there. So that's how people started writing some very small messages, 2 line, 3 line, and likewise. And then people realized that this, if we can, use this particular data for, image or other you kind of video transmission also, then that can be very, very fascinating. And this is how they started working on, you can say, for towards 2.5G. and where the data rate were from 50 kbps to 250, but still it was a improvement over, you can say, the same, GSM. That's a general packet radio service. I mean, enhanced data rate for GSM, that is AH. These particular technology were, you can say, this improvement over the GSM, and the frequency band again was same, bandwidth was same, switching technology, you can say, with the coming of data transmission, circuit switching along with packet switching, both this particular switching started, you can say, used, and application was voice and data. This was again near about 2000, in fact 2.5G, and then came the 3G technology, third generation, which was established in around 2000. In fact, the most challenging part of this particular communication technology was the standardization. And standardization means essentially, you can say, people agreeing to certain standards, that what should decide about, or what are the basic you can say, the domain of the technology, what are the, you can say, basic criteria of the kind of services it should provide, the kind of, you can say, quality, the kind of other issues, you can say, and that these are all technology issues. And across the world, I mean, you can say, all multinational companies, each country promotes its own company. So this standard generation, like your IEEE standards or other, is still a very, very, I think maybe many participants should learn more about it. We can have, one, maybe some, this faculty development program on only along, you can say, the standards. Because the standard preparation is a totally new area, like your TRI, or, we have, or you can say telecom regulatory authority. Similarly, you can say our, this particular cable networks, or you can say our this particular DTS services. There, I think maybe people will have more insight into, if you know about standards, and these standards, this particular promise 384 in 3G. The question maybe I think any participant must ask is, what was the problem with the GSM that we had to talk about? You can say wideband CDMAs, or you can say, I mean, different, or 4G as LTE or other systems. So it was more or less something has to do with the technology itself, because TDM was based on, I mean, you can say time division multiplexing, and so the slots that you are, you can say dividing your message to, I mean, how many slots you can combine together, that has this whole limitation due to synchronization, other issues. So this wideband CDMA technology, or CDMA technology, in fact, people felt that this was obviously for a military purpose. It was developed, I think, in 1950s. You know about it, but that was thought as a potential solution. I mean, for providing this high data access, and you all know how CDMA is can provide more you can say subscribers, more capacity, more data speed, because of the inherent nature of the CDMA technology. Now, frequency band was same, bandwidth of course 5 megahertz. That's what the wideband CDMA for data services. And let me tell you, if you look at 2019 itself, the data you can say size, or data you can say growth. I mean, growth in the data rate, or data you can say delivery, is almost around 82%. That means in comparison to the last year, 82% more data was generated through, you can see, mobile services. And now 5G, 5G and 6G, you are talking about, you can see, around 30% of the data growth in the next, you can say, 10 years almost. So data is playing now, obviously, as you keep on reading, data transmission or data speeds and data volumes, I mean, all associated cloud computing, you can say, or other issues, or back-end storage, that all, many issues are, you can say, linked with this particular application. Again, voice and video calling. And this 3G, what are the features? They could provide faster communication, obviously, send, receive large email messages, large capacity and broadband capabilities, 11 second to 1.5 minute time to download it, 3 minute, you can say, MP3 song. Now, the drawbacks for expensive fees for 3G license fees, we already know in our country at least what kind of this 2G, 3G issues have, generated in our country. It was challenged to build the infrastructure for 3G, high bandwidth requirement, expensive 3G phones, large cell phones. Again, you can say, because of the change, you can say, the technology, the cost of the, you can say, the handset also went up. Now, then, of course, people are still not satisfied, you can say, with 3, as far as data speed is concerned, we all know, I mean, in our age also, we have seen it. I mean, more, you can say, everyone is asking about more speed. So 3.5G technology gave data rate up to 5 to 30 Mbps. And these are some of the technology: high speed upload download packet, and that's EDO, that evolution data optimization. Frequency band was same. Switching technology predominantly became packet switching and application and video calling. Then came 3.7G technology, data rate up to 100 to 200 Mbps. And access technology was long-term evolution, orthogonal single carrier frequency division. This is the same, you can say, particular, you can say, access now being talked in 5G also. And fixed WiMAX, worldwide interoperable microwave. Frequency band was 1.8 to 2.6 gigahertz upper. Of course, in 5G, it is more than that. Bandwidth, again, it's a higher packet switching. And the applications were, you can say, then 4G technologies, that's data rate downloads up to 3 Gbps. Upload was 1.6 Mbps for LTE and 100 to 200 Mbps for mobile WiMAX services. I mean, still, I think we in our country we have to still have to have 4Gs in some areas at least. Of course, large cities have started, you can say, or Reliance or this particular, they have already providing this particular 4G, technology. Access technology. Now that I have already discussed, band frequency band is again up to this now 1.8 to 2.6 gigahertz, and bandwidth is, you can say, about 1.4 to 20 gigahertz. It's a packet switching and application. Of course, you can say multimedia messaging services, digital video broadcasting. I mean, many issues. In fact, if you look about digital broadcast also, like in many countries, all this analog services like our All India Radio, or you can say our voice FM AM channels, they have been converted to digital broadcasting using this particular technology. Then we need to talk about I'll talk about 5G technology now. Data rate that are projected is 10 to 15 Gbps. What are the basic beam division multiple access and number and quasi orthogonal filter bank circuit? These are the, you can say, particular futuristic technology they are talking about in 5G. Frequency band is again up to 0.6 to 6 gigahertz, and 24 to 27 gigahertz, 27.5, 29 gigahertz, 37 to 40, and 64 to 71 gigahertz. Now these are the particular frequency bands which are talked about as a potential, you can say, service providing solution for 5G services. Now switching technology, packet switching applications, again ultra high definition video, smart cities, virtual reality, and you can say all broadcasting, you can say, technology, all type of, you can say, that can be used. Now what are the main features? Why people are so fascinated, or other services? And some of the features are low latency. Less than 1 millisecond can be achieved in 5G using this millimeter wave. Hence, traffic load is decreased on 5G base stations. That's one of the disadvantage, you can say, or 3G or 4G. Higher bandwidth can be used with the help of carrier aggregation features. Carrier aggregation means essentially, you can say, number of carriers can be used to enhance the service quality. Dynamic beamforming is employed to overcome path loss at higher frequencies. This is again a new, you can say, new concept. Dynamic beamforming means you provide more gain to a particular beam, and beam formation can be made adaptable to as the subscriber moves from one place to another one. So that means you can have that particular high gain beam for a particular subscriber, and doesn't interference is also reduced. So that's some key features of this dynamic beam formation. I'll talk later on also about it. And 5G should offer 10x throughput. Throughput, you can say, almost 10 times the throughput should improve over 4G. 10 decrease in latency, 10x connection density, it will go up. 3 times spectrum efficiency. This again a very good feature. Spectrum efficiency is going up almost 3 times. 100 times traffic capacity will increase, and 100 times network efficiency will also go up. Now, what are the different application scenarios? As we are saying that this will transfer everything which we are right now, it is like, you can say, the coming of or other more, you can say, the integrated electronics, where everything got transformed so much. I think 5G is also likely to have those similar kind of scenario at least. So what are major categories of use of 5G are? Machine to machine communication. Okay, what is machine to machine communication? Means you can say all IoT services. You can say near about people are still talking about the devices that will be connected across these 5G services will be billions of So that means one device can communicate to another device. And this machine to machine major portion is Internet of Things. That involves connecting billions of devices without human intervention at a scale not seen before. This has the potential to revolutionize modern industrial processes, applications, including agriculture, manufacturing, and business communication. You might be, thinking about like how it is going to revolutionize like modern industrial processes. That means you can control your, particular, even if, let me give an example. If you are producing, let's say, oil from a oil well, now you can control it from a remote area, sitting on a, you can say, a particular computer. So that sort of real time, you can say, control you can exercise through this IoT applications to any applications. I mean, you name applications and people are still now. So it's again a very you can say useful research area also. Now a lot of people are still working on, you can say, in this new you can say innovations are taking place every day. Now in agriculture also it can be potentially machine to machine communication. That means, I mean, the particular farmer may know about that, what is the, you can say the particular water level or particular, you can say, moisture content in his soil, sitting at a particular different place. He doesn't have to go to the, you can say, farm field every time and see to it that, so applications are many. In fact, similarly about pasture control or all other, everything is, you can say, can be monitored and can be programmed. At least manufacturing, of course, we already know about it, about smart cities or other, you can say, manufacturing processes. This is again going to revolutionize how the foundries take work on. And the next application scenario is ultra reliable low latency communication. Ultra reliable means obviously the communication has to be reliable, and low latency means the, you can see, the access time or particular application connecting time, that is almost, as I told earlier on, it's 1 millisecond order. So this is critical, including real-time control of devices, because you can instantly control to the devices. Industrial robotics, vehicle-to-vehicle communication and safety systems, autonomous driving, safer transport networks. Low latency communication also opens up a new world where remote medical care, procedures and treatment are all possible. So you name an area, and this kind of communication can help, whether it's a doctor, whether it's a, you can say, engineer, or a particular, you can say, transporter, or a safety supervisor. You name any process, and this kind of communication is obviously going to help him, and new kind of, you can say, obviously applications are going to come up. Then enhanced mobile broadband. This provides significantly faster data speeds and greater capacity, keeping the world connected. New application will include fixed wireless internet access for homes, outdoor broadcast applications without the need for broadcast vans, and greater connectivity for people on the move. So look at this particular you can say the services, a smart city. I mean, you can say virtual reality, your augmented reality, USD videos, home broadband, factory automation, smart grid, connected vehicle. I mean, already people are talking about. So these are the different, you can say, importance of network performance, that how this, I mean, enhanced mobile broadband systems, or this millimeter wave, you can say, machine to machine, this communication, or ultra reliable, are likely to perform in terms of a spectrum efficiency. Other now 5G will enhance the socio-economic satisfaction also. I mean, that's a bit you can agree with that transportation will be revolutionized, richer contents will be there, multi-user, I mean, ultra high, you can say, definition, teleconferences, purchase, like what we are doing now in Google Meet. At least it will be much better experience, at least in this particular with coming of 5G. Healthcare, which is a very critical now, being talked all across the world because of this corona. I think it has exposed our weakness in the healthcare. Hopefully this kind of 5G technology, this will provide access to the, you can say, remotest area, where in the at least countryside, rural side, hardly doctor don't want to go, and probably there are many good health facilities also. So that it will at least make these particular people have access to better healthcare. So that's again a very we can say healthy sign for use of this application. Disaster relief, that is again going to obviously add up to betterment. House, home securities, consumer electronics, remote control, education, distant learning, virtual experience. I think right now in the last 6 months, you will agree that all companies, in fact, those companies working on digital, you can say, education part, their growth has been almost phenomenal. They have all, you can say, Google or this particular multinationals, their profits have zoomed, in fact, or there are a lot of, you can say, profit margins, at least as far as this, because of the services, safety and lifeline systems, collision avoidance systems. I mean, systems which can be designed that they will, I mean, there will be hardly any collision on the roads. So they are obviously revolutionary, you can say. Key enabling technologies, millimeter wave, massive MIMO. I mean, what are the, you can say, basic difference between 4G and 5G? And the technology part is millimeter wave and the massive MIMO, multi-beam antennas and ultra densification. I'll talk about this now. Millimeter waves, I think all of you, as I have talked about, the spectrum is going towards higher frequencies, and higher frequency do not, you can say, travel in free space as good as, you can say, our 800 GSM, you know, this particular carriers. So this federal communication and many research groups from academia and industry suggest that millimeter wave shows greater potential in enabling gigabit per second throughput. Now, many might be thinking about also why we have to go, you know, to the higher spectrum, because we have to have more bandwidth, we have to have more speed, and there is no alternative, you can say. We can't have, you can say, that sort of higher bandwidth at the lower frequency. So there is no alternative, in fact, except that we have to go to the millimeter waves. Now, millimeter wave usually refer to, of course, up to 300 gigahertz, but researchers also prefer to add the nearby, you know, centimeter frequency band also. I mean, 24 gigahertz to 28 gigahertz also. I mean, these are, of course, I mean, the discussions right now. But millimeter wave, you can see the range is from 30 to, I mean, 300 gigahertz. Unlicensed and licensed millimeter wave frequency bands provide greater amount of available spectrum resources that can support the requirement for high data rate, low latency, flexible connectivity for a wide range of users. Frequency band, I think I already told about that. Now, millimeter wave, as I said, the losses is a big part, you can say. So if you look at, you know, this some of the studies that have been, a common myth is wireless engineering communities that rain atmosphere make millimeter wave spectrum useless for mobile communication. However, when we consider the fact that today's cell size, I mean, the cell size obviously is going to be reduced, you can say, around, I mean, 200 meter. In fact, right now we have in some few kilometers, and even this 200 meter propagation also, the losses it becomes clear that millimeter wave cellular can overcome these losses. Now, obviously challenges are there, because, you know, obstacles are there in the cities at least. So how do you manage those obstacles? Managing obstacle is far greater, and then providing constant services to all of it. It's obviously very still not solved the problem, depending upon the city, you can say, infrastructure. Rain attenuation in kilometer across the frequency spectrum, if you look at, so the rain attenuation 28 gigahertz has an attenuation of 7 dB per kilometer for every heavy rainfall of 25 mm per hour. I mean, that's an order. So it's around 7 dB per kilometer. The cell coverage region are 200 meter in radius. So the rain attenuation will reduce to 1.4 dB. So 1.4 dB per kilometer, that will be the loss that you have to come across. Now, this particular figure, I mean, explains that this particular atmospheric absorption across millimeter wave frequency in dB. So if you look at here, you know, from 0, you can see gigahertz up to 300, 400 gigahertz, the losses will be, this is the attenuation level, you can say, levels. And so obviously up to, you can say, this 60, 80 gigahertz, it's of the order of, I mean, it can be managed up to, you can see, around 1 dB per kilometer. And of course it goes up if you go to, you know, higher frequencies, and that in some of the frequency we have some spikes also. So that particularly reflects the attenuation caused by atmospheric absorption is 0.00 dB or 200 meter, 28 gigahertz. 28 gigahertz, it's a very small. And this one 0.016 dB or 200 meter, because the cell size, as we already, you know about, I mean, pico cells or femto cells, and now this micro and macro cells. Right now we are using macro, so the size is obviously going to be reduced. The frequency from 70 to 100 gigahertz can also have small losses. Now, line of sight communication provides the best signal strength with a pair of high gain directional antennas. I think all of you know that. However, in no line of sight scenario, when direct propagation is blocked, additional path loss is observed. That happens in even our normal mobile also, which greatly degrades the received signal strength. Now, what is the solution? The solution is average non line of sight, you know, path yields a path loss exponent of 5.675, which is much higher than the path loss exponent of around 2 in free space. So this is of the order of loss will be very high. The blockage effect at millimeter wave frequency is also inevitable, which can be caused by common objects as building, wireless, pedestrian. Okay, and major cause by building an urban environment. Massive MIMO, spatial multiplexing, beamforming are the solution to overcome. I mean, these are the, of course, the problems you can say right now. So the solutions have been, at least thought about massive MIMO and beamforming. What is massive MIMO? This massive MIMO utilizes spatial multiplexing and time division duplexing. And what is, I think many of you are already, at least reading about this massive MIMO configurations. I mean, multiple input, multiple output systems. Now, spatial multiplexing utilizes the multiple antennas. मैं थोड़ी देर बाद बात करता हूँ, 1 मिनट है. So this is, while each data stream travels through different propagation channels, the receiver also equipped with multiple antennas will be able to receive. Now, how does it work? I mean, what are the issues that I also talk about? Spatial multiplexing is mostly effective when the propagation paths are rich and can support multiple data stream for transmission. And also when the channel has high signal to noise ratio. And how do we ensure that, at least to get the signal strength? So what is a massive MIMO? The benefits of massive MIMO include a huge increase in spectral efficiency, reduced latency, and scalable air interface structure. This reduced latency is achieved by the law of large numbers embedded in the nature of massive MIMO, which eliminates the frequency dependence of the channel and frequency selective fading. I think these are some of the issues. I mean, any communication person at least understands these fading effects. They will not affect the signal strength. Consequently, each transmitted data stream will no longer suffer from channel distortion and can arrive at receiver with reduced latency. So there will be no multipath, you can say, and if at all, this will be, you can say, the kind of latency that will be very small. Due to large number of base station antenna components, actual air interface structure architecture can be designed to have flexibility, scalability, depending upon real time. For example, if a cell served by a massive MIMO base station only connects to several user terminals, not all base station antenna element will be necessarily active. I mean, जरूरी नहीं है सारे वो antenna काम में ले जाएं उसी वक्त. So you can program them also depending upon the traffic in the cell. So the energy consumption can be also optimized. And if heavy data traffic occurs in one massive MIMO cell, all the components will be active to provide fast data transmission. Now, this time division duplexing is, the technology that is being used. And the channel estimation is dependent on the number of orthogonal pilots. As I said earlier on, orthogonal frequency division multiplexing is, the future, you can see the technology that is being, you can say, talked or perhaps being used in all these pilot projects. So this channel estimation, that will be depending on orthogonal pilots sent by the base station to the user terminal, which is proportional to number of antenna elements. I think channel characteristic will be the most, you can say, challenging area as far as you can say this particular massive MIMO transmission is concerned, because then you have to think about complex coding. Channel coding will be also changing. Then signal quality is also in any case changing, and obviously number of this you can say test cases also corresponding to number of this particular channel estimation cases also. Then bandwidth parts yield more efficient. Okay, bandwidth parts, but this induces coexistence issues also. You can say large bandwidths also. Massive MIMO and mmWave beam steering enables higher throughput and capacity gains, but also introduces new challenges in beam management. How do you use a beam management? I think that's again a very challenging area, you can say. And so, I mean, this in time division duplexing, the channel estimation becomes computationally cumbersome, and it is not realistic as the user terminal has the nature of mobility. So channel estimation is a problem. I think I'll later on give the number of, you can say, the research areas also where these particular problems are still open problems. The solution is by utilizing the reciprocity of the uplink and downlink in TDD for channel estimation. Now, number of solutions are being talked now. So, I mean, what they are saying is use some reciprocity relationship between uplink and downlink. In fact, in uplink and downlink speed, you can say maybe higher, but uplink has a lot of issues. The user terminal will send pilot waveforms to base station for uplink channel estimation, and then the base station can relatively easily perform downlink estimation based on that's about some of the solutions. Some studies propose a technique called joint spatial division multiplexing to apply the correlation of channel vectors and demonstrate a feasibility of FDD system. So these are you can say example of massive MIMO. Now in massive MIMO we have, you can say, multi-user, multi-input, multiple output. So that's the first, massive MIMO, like this very large antenna array at each base station. You can see that. I mean, a lot of these devices are connected to one base station. A large number of users are served simultaneously. So that is a massive MIMO. And you might say that how the number massive means what? It may be 100, it may be more than 100, or it may be, 400, 500 also. So depending upon, you can see the application, depending upon the area or depending upon the management possible, you can, increase that. And this is going to obviously increase the capacity. The second one is multi-user, multiple input output. You can say it improves wireless throughput by enabling simultaneous transmission to more than. Now look here, these different beams, the same frequency can be used on, all these beams simultaneously. That means right now we have, this issues of, you can see the bandwidth or, limited, you can say spectrum. Now, in case of this particular beam formation, all these 3 subscriber can be served on a single frequency. So, this is big, you can say. Now, this is a, you can say, corresponding to full dimensional multiple input or multiple output. Full dimensional means that's a spatial multiplexing. That means elevation beam forming. The same base station can have elevation. That means in the upper sphere. Azimuthal means you can say the horizontal, azimuthal. So the base station can form beams in, you can call it 2-dimensional or maybe 3-dimensional also in the coming time. That means you name and then you can get a particular beam in a particular area. But this is easier said than done. You should understand how this is possible. Obviously, a lot of signal processing, you can say, will be involved because you have to get the corresponding, particular, you can say, input to this particular base station antennas, that how the subscriber is moving, and then you have to obviously use some algorithmic part to align them in a particular area. So a lot of, these are some of the research problems for massive MIMO. What are the near research problems? Near field versus far field channel models. So for large dimensional antennas, array elements in millimeter wave frequency, the Fraunhofer distance will increase and thus the near field regions expands. I think all of you know about all the, you can say, right now, because of the frequencies, these far of field conditions are satisfied very easily. But massive MIMO, you can say you will have some near field issues also, because that will be expanding. In that case, the basis of plane wave propagation will not be exclusively valid for propagation channel. So you can't say there is a plane wave propagation. Obviously you have to model a bit differently. To overcome this challenge, a distance dependent channel model that considers the distinct effect of both near and far field should be developed. That means my propagation study will have to be carried out for both near and far field. Then pilot contamination, hundreds of antenna components are installed to serve multiple users at the same time. This challenges synchronization and multi-user interference suppression. Okay, a small size, this particular massive MIMO system perform a calibration process through exchanging pilot waveforms between different base station antenna and reference antenna. Fractional frequency reuse is also a probable solution for pilot contamination. Blind pilot decontamination. Many solutions are being talked about. There is not a single solution right now. No solution is stabilized till now, at least. Very large antenna array designs. Then energy consumption and cost. These are some of the potential, you can say, the solutions people are working in that. Then the beam forming. Beam forming is contrast to spatial multiplexing combines antenna array, because you want to direct your beam in a particular direction. So for that purpose, lot of, you can say, processing involved will be involved in this particular. How do you adaptively and utilizes the beam forming weights multiplied each element to control the direction? Now, obviously, when you are talking about, you have signal strength also, you have their phase problems also, you have their feed networks also. So, like, in our switch beam radars, if you know about phase array, antennas also. So these some of the phase array antenna concept will be also used here. Specific users will be directed to receive the data while others will not be interfered. Beam forming performs well when the channel has limited power to low SNR as a result of the combination of multiple antenna elements coherently. However, the gain of antenna array increases. You can appreciate that the angular coverage reduces significantly. So multiple beam antennas are required. That means very narrow beam will have to be constructed, and that those should be supplied to that particular, you can say, multi-beam antennas also. Like I mean, the same array produces multi-beam, like as I said, in all two-dimensional azimuthal as well as elevation. So these are capable of generating a number of concurrent but independent direction beams with a high gain value to cover up a predefined angular range, provide a solution to overcome the above shortcoming of antennas with single directive beam. In multi-beam antenna system, the orthogonal beams possess a high angular selectivity, thus allowing for significant frequency reuse and yielding much higher system capacity. Now, they may be classified multi-beam based on reflectors, based on lenses, based on beam forming. These are some of the potential solutions. So, multiple beam antennas, they are capable of generating number of concurrent but independent directive beams with a high gain value to cover a predefined angular range. And there are passive beam and there are active, you can say, multi-beam. The passive, this particular beam antennas are based on reflectors, based on lenses, based on beam forming circuits. Now passive MBA based on reflectors. Reflectors, you can say like this one, center fade reflectors. I mean, you have a big reflector, and these are your, you can say, corresponding to back end, and these are your antennas, and based on that, based upon these particular inputs, these particular different beams can be formed. Now this is a center fade, this is offset fade. You know about that particular, it is parabolic reflectors also, and in case this is corresponding to planar reflectors. So these are, I mean, some of the solutions. Now passive multi-beam antennas based on lenses. Lenses, high frequency, everybody knows that we go for lenses. So this particular, this is conventional homogeneous lens, and now this is a gradient index Lensberg lens, and this is a gradient index half Maxwell-Fish eye lenses. So look at here, if I am feeding, you can see this particular input to a lens, it is producing beams particularly. So this is a conventional homogeneous. If it's a gradient index, then my inputs will generate beams across that. Gradient means there is a variation of, you can say, refractive index across this particular lens. And then this is gradient index half Maxwell-Fish. I mean, these are the name based upon particular, you can say, scientists, they have given it. This particular, I mean, you are giving input across, I mean, different inputs, and this particular, fish type half, as the name itself says, half Maxwell-Fish lens, this will generate. So these are some of the solutions. Look at here, the refractive index here also, you can say, depending upon this particular variation. Passive multi-beam antenna based on beam forming circuits, that is also like, if you look at passive, this particular multi-beam antennas, you have the antennas, the 90-degree hybrids, you have some phase, again, you can say 40-degree, and that depending upon how you are providing the input to each port. This particular port will generate a, you can say, pattern in a particular, particular direction. So that's the E-plane pattern, you can say, corresponding to azimuthal angle in degrees. So port 1, the port 1 you can see, I mean, the pattern that will generate port 2, you can port 3, port 4, and if you combine them, you can form the kind of, you can say, corresponding KU band. I mean, the surface integrated, I mean, this waveguide, this particular Butler matrix MBA. I mean, how do you design your, you can say, this particular input, where this all inputs are, you can say, aligned to form a beam. Now, these are active multi-beam antenna based on beam forming circuits. Again, this particular inputs you are providing, and this is beam 1, beam 2, beam 3, you can say. A to D converter, of course, I mean, this is low oscillator, I mean, you can say, particular frequency oscillators, low noise amplifiers. These are the, you can say, whole architecture, and this is, you can say, the band pass filter, and these antennas are producing corresponding to beams based upon active, multi-beam antennas. Similarly, this one is corresponding to the system architecture for full, I mean, direct, this multi-beam antennas with M elements, M channels, and N beams. Similarly, this particular is with M elements, Q channels, and N beams, and this particular phase subarray. This is a phase subarray. So you can see here, beam 1, beam 2, how they are, their different weights are getting, you can say, feeding to each other. The research problem in multi-beam antennas, the beam forming algorithm challenges. Highly efficient beam forming algorithms are, you can say, still obviously they will evolve with the time. Direction of arrival finding and interference signal blocking for multiple users. I think many of you must be familiar with, but this is an open area, research area right now. Digital processing hardware challenges, A to D converts, and DSP chips with extremely high throughput signal processing capabilities, obviously at the back end to adjust the weights, and then for this particular, beam formation, millimeter wave, you can say, component challenges, and multiple users serving multiple independent beams, the total power is increased if the same level of this is desirable, and so good linearity, power efficiency, and thermal control of the component, particularly amplifiers in every transceiver, has to be maintained in wide bandwidth at this particular millimeter wave, which is a challenging RF design. I mean, this particular solution is now in multi-beam antennas, array channel challenges. As the number of channel increases, the mutual coupling between the channel will increase. Okay. Similarly, about the system implementation challenges, compact footprint of final improved equipment and planarized multi-layer PCB configuration, limited board area needs to encompass the transceiver chips behind all the closely spaced antennas, because transceiver, your receiver has to also work in close to this antenna configurations, so that packaging will also obviously physical, you can say, distance packaging also will be a big challenge, at least making the signal routing and board layout for complicated tasks of system designer. Hence, the system architecture needs to be optimized for obtaining balance between the performance and complexity. And these are some of the issues still not solved. Then ultra densification. Ultra densification means connect all the devices, smartphone, tablets, wearable devices, other types of new devices that require network access. The data requirement is going to increase exponentially. Traditional high power mounted base station cannot keep up with this, whatever right now is trusted. To keep up with the increase in demand, two major solutions are spatial densification and spectral aggregation. That we already, spatial densification means essentially, spatially, you can have a lot of, you can say, access for the users. This can create more layers of cells, and more, obviously you have to have more cells corresponding to, the size of the cell will be obviously reducing. To be more specific, spatial densification includes the idea of heterogeneous network, which has been brought to attention in 4G LTE system. That means rather than a homogeneous to a heterogeneous, different of carriers also you will have to integrate. Group of smaller elements for head include pico cells, fermento cells, or distributed antenna element. On the other hand, spectral aggregation takes the challenge of aggregating the non-continuous. I think these are the ultra densification. If you have a pico cell, we have a fermento cell, micro cell, and macro cell. So the output power you can see in macro cell is around 60 watt, while in case of pico cell, this power level is 0.1 at least watt, and the coverage radiation here is 10 meter, here is 200 meter, it's 2000 and 5000 meters. So 5000, and right now we are using, in fact. Key challenges for ultra densification: user scheduling and mobility management, cost for small cells management. These are some of the issues for. Now the conclusion: this upcoming 5G technology connects the user with machines. Millimeter wave, massive MIMO beamforming are the key enabling technology for 5G. These are the three area major enabling technology. Massive MIMO used to increase the channel capacity of the system. The path loss associated with multi-millimeter wave non-line of sight propagation limits the coverage area. Beamforming is used to increase the coverage. These are some of the references I have used. Okay, Garima, hello.
Hanji sir.
Yes, I have finished my particular, you can say, presentation. Any question, if anybody, or maybe I can take on, you can mail me also, get me the mail.
So there are 1 and 2 questions are there.
Yeah.
One from Kayam Singh asking,
Yes.
be related to wireless sensor network too?
Yeah, yes. All kind of data acquisition systems, you can say, obviously for any kind of communication, your data, you want to deliver your data to a particular destination, so that can be used sensor. In fact, most of this particular data is going to be generated in all smart city, or you can say all smart transport systems through sensors only. So sensors are in a way, perhaps, at least in all your smart projects, sensors are obviously, you can say, embedded into that.
Good morning, sir. Good morning,
Yes.
sir. This is Monica Malik from Noida, sir. So very good session. So thank you very much for this. Sir, actually, I've got one question. I have posted the same question on wireless sensor networks only. So, if they're using MIMO, like earlier, when we are using MIMO with massive MIMO, or maybe anything related to antennas. So,
Okay.
how I'm going to model the wireless sensor network with the antennas, sir?
No,
Like,
I mean, yes. And you have finished your question?
sir, I have to take care of all the protocols that we are going to connect the massive MIMO or just MIMO network with the wireless sensor network, sir?
Yeah, I think the primary job of a sensor is to deliver the data. Now, what kind of data acquisition system you have there, and then how do you make your data, you can say, reach to the massive MIMO architecture? Okay, so that
Okay.
is, yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, it's a sensor output, or it's, you can say, any digital output. The massive MIMO configuration will not distinguish. So
Okay, sir.
depending upon the, you can see, the address, it will deliver there.
Fine, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, okay, Garima.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, for the nice session, whatever you have delivered. It is very informative. Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us.
Thank you, thank you, thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Dear participants, there is an announcement for you all. The attendance will be marked as per the AICTE norms. You have to attend at least 80% of the total sessions. And after the complete short-term training program, a quiz will be shared with you all, and you have to score minimum 60% marks in that quiz for the certificate. So please be attentive and aware about the exam and attendance particularly. Thank you for the first session. We'll meet again at 11:45 for the next session. Am I right, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Check the attendance sheet now. Everyone write.
Ma'am, it is not, ma'am, we are not able to open it. The link is not
Yeah,
open.
ma'am. I am just sharing. मैं आप लोगों को authority के लिए open कर देती हूँ, okay?
Okay,
I am
fine.
sharing the link on the WhatsApp group also. Yeah, okay.